Here's how to not get scammed by a Google Ads agency in 2025. Now, this is a fun topic because it's a little bit more of an art than a science. It's really hard to know who to trust in this space. And this goes anywhere, right? You might have the same experience on the Facebook ad side. But the biggest thing that's very common in the marketing world is that there's agencies who promise results and they don't give you those results because they want to sell you easier. And that's why we really consider that scamming, right? They're presenting that they're going to get you something. They don't make it happen. And you're just a casualty for a few months where they make their money, you churn out, and then they get more accounts because they keep doing the same thing over and over again. So it's very common in this space. I'm sure you or people you know have been burned by agencies. So I really want to go over what you can do to avoid being in that situation, the things you can ask and the questions that you want to know the answers to get the right type of people to work with. Now, the first thing is going to be avoiding massive agencies. It may sound a little bit biased, but with massive agencies, there's really no way for them to retain good talent, right? Because when you get good at Google Ads, it's a revenue-driven activity, right? You're basically putting money in and you're getting money out for somebody. And when you master that skill set, it's a lot easier for you to make money. And these big agencies, they have to set within certain margins. They got to keep their EBITDA at a different rate. They have to basically get people who are willing to work within the salaries that they can offer. A lot of the times, pretty much most of the times, those salaries are not enough for somebody that has the skill set mastered, because when somebody works for them and they get to the point where they're doing really well, they're going to get a better opportunity or they're going to try to start their own agency. So the biggest thing with massive agencies is they can't retain the talent that's actually going to be able to yield you results. The other thing is they care more about their personal growth as an agency than the actual results they're getting for clients. And you're really just a number at that point. You're just a churn number, because as long as they can maintain more gain than they have churn for clients that are coming in, they're happy, right? They're scaling. That's the biggest thing to them. When it comes to a smaller agency, you're not really focused on that. You're really focused on the retention of each individual client because the revenue means something to them. So I really encourage, if you're going to go with an agency, make sure it's more of what might be called like a boutique agency or a smaller agency that has more of a tight-knit team than a massive agency, because they're simply just going to care more about you than the big ones will. Next is going to be when it comes to the audit. Now, there's really two different types of audits that you're going to see. One's going to be a massive checklist and it's just a big presentation. It looks kind of copied and paste pretty much across the board. The other one's going to be more individualized, which is going to be actually on actionable advice that you can take to increase the account, whether they work with you or not. Highly recommend, if you see those big templated reports and people are just kind of going through the motion and putting in kind of data that doesn't really matter, stuff like impressions, click-through rate, stuff like that. A lot of times it's not a good sign. Generally, that's going to lead them to be people who are kind of putting you into a machine, right? Whereas the other side is going to be people who are actually trying to generate your results, and they're going to be willing to give that information, because, you know, Hormozi talks about giving away the information, selling the execution. Those are really the type of people you want to work with. If they're willing to tell you what they're going to do differently, or the things that you can actually do increase the odds of success in the account or making more money, those are usually the people you want to work with, because they don't have that scarcity mindset. They're willing to talk about what they're going to do for you. And then if you want to work with them, which generally at that point, if you believe in what they're saying, you're going to want to work with them. That's the move to make. The third thing is going to be, is it a cheap service? Now, there's for sure no such thing as great service at a cheap cost in the world of advertising. You really get what you pay for. And if you find people who are willing to manage your account for, let's say, $300 or $500, whatever it is, usually it's going to be a low average compared to the market average. You're not going to get results from that. There's just no sustainable way for them to keep people that can execute at a high level while charging that low amount of service. You're really just going to get low maintenance. They're really probably aiming for accounts where they can set up in the beginning and they're just going to coast until you eventually burn out at some point. So highly recommend, if you're going to hire an agency, do not cheap out. You know, you're going to make more money with somebody that's going to charge you $5K a month than you will with someone making $300 a month on their account, because the level of expertise is going to take you to a much higher scale. So would you rather, let's say, make $100,000 in profit per month from your Google Ads account paying someone $5K a month, or make $20,000 worth of profit paying somebody $300 a month? You really have to use your logic there. And if you take that other route, you're going to get the results that are pretty much warranted by somebody who's going to charge $300 a month to run the account. So highly recommend, don't cheap out on the team that you're going to hire. Make sure it's the right team. Generally, if they charge more, it's going to make you more. There are caveats to that. Make sure you vet them properly. Last is kind of asking some of the key questions that'll get you some of the important information from that agency and kind of put them on the spot. The biggest one is going to really understand how much ad spend they manage per month. This is a very easy way to try to kind of weed out the super small agencies that might be trying to flex and sell you, or even the big agencies where they might say some giant arbitrary number that's just going to mean that they're a massive agency. You're going to be a part of the machine. So this is going to give you a really good gauge. Of course, some people can lie. There's certain things you can do, like go to their Google profile, which will show in their manager account how much they're managing per month. But it's a good idea to get perspective on how big the agency is. Next is going to be what industry they work in, and is it relative to yours? Now, in the world of Google Ads, there's a lot of different ways to run campaigns, and there's certain things that work really well for, let's say, lead gen, and certain things that work really well for e-com. If you get a big agency that does a ton of lead gen, they're not going to know how to scale an e-com account. account. Same thing if somebody was doing lead gen and hiring an ecom based agency. It's completely different. Even bonus points if they actually work actively with ecom stores that are similar to yours. It just means that they know the specific type of strategies that are going to work for your type of store. So make sure to ask who they generally work with, because it will definitely change how they manage your account. The next thing is going to be how they actually charge for the account. Now, it's very traditional to do some kind of scale incentive based off of percent of ad spend, which is totally okay. We do that as well. But the caveat to that is a lot of agencies will generally scale an account despite the ROI just because they want to make more money, because the more you spend, the more it's going to make them. We've heard a ton of horror stories in the past of different types of stores who have been scaled and just basically sucked dry profit wise, and they didn't actually yield revenue from it, but the agency was paid out 30, 40, 50K for that month just because they had that stipulation. Now, one of the things you want to look for is making sure there's some kind of ROI floor. What's going to mean is they're only going to be able to scale if there's a minimum ROI they're hitting, which is really important. The other thing is going to be rev share. Now, rev shares aren't not necessarily like super popular, but it's tricky because so many stores run their stores differently. So you'll see the ad spend percentage is a lot more common, but if it is rev share, make sure it's not on top line revenue, because if it's on top line revenue, same thing. They'll be able to scale the top line revenue of your store. They'll make a bunch of money, but you'll basically lose money because it's not going to be taken out of the net revenue from your store. So if you're going to do a rev share with the agency, make sure it's based off of after the cost of fulfillment, the cost of goods sold, and all those different numbers that are hard costs in the store. That way they're actually getting a percentage of the net revenue sales and not the gross revenue sales. Last is going to be what the reporting looks like. Now, the one thing you want to avoid is getting with an agency that's just going to send you like a cheap, pretty much dashboard every month, or like a little report that talks about impressions and click-through rate and that kind of thing. Really, the only thing that should be important to you is the amount of money that goes in the platform, the amount of money comes out, because that's really what's going to affect your bottom line. So if you know Google Ads or you know the industry, you're going to want more and more data points, right? So you can kind of judge. That being said, don't meddle in someone else's expertise. Don't think you know more just because you scale the score out a little bit or whatever it is, because you could totally destroy what's going to happen with the account if you try to get your hands in there and dictate what needs to happen. So make sure you trust who you hire, but vet who you hire carefully, and make sure they're actually going to report on the data that matters. Because a lot of the times agencies will generally report on insignificant data that looks really cool, doesn't actually affect your bottom line. So I hope that helped you. Like I said, a lot of the times hiring an agency is going to let you scale your store farther. Make sure to vet them properly. Now, if you're in the boat where you're looking actively for an agency, make sure to check out below. We actually have a link where you can book a call with me. Me and the team will check out your account personally. And then in the call, we'll talk about exactly what you can do to scale your account, whether you work with us or not. So check out the link, book a call. Looking forward to speaking with you.